Welcome back, everybody. So today we are going to make homemade pizza dough. I'm going to show you the recipe that my mom has provided to me, and this is one that I've used for many years. Just a few ingredients is all it takes. She's from the Northeast United States, and if you've ever eaten pizza up in the Northeast, it's one of the best pizza crusts that you ever had. So there's just a few ingredients here. Let me show you how it all comes together. Okay, so here's what we need to make the pizza dough. So I've got some yeast. I have some olive oil, salt, sugar, and some warm water. So here's the proportions that you need. First off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to proof the yeast. So I have 2 cups of warm water, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put about a tablespoon of yeast into the water. It's roughly about a tablespoon. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use about a teaspoon or so of sugar. So that's going to feed the yeast. I'm going to shake that up just a little bit, and we're going to set that aside. Okay, and while that's proofing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the dough ready. I have our stand mixer here set. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I'm going to add about a half teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to use about 2.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, so I'm going to start by mixing this together, and that'll give the yeast a little bit more time to proof. It'll probably take roughly 10 minutes, I think, to get this all done. We'll come back here in the next segment. I'll show you when I put that in there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how to make sure that everything is combined well and what to look for when it's ready. Alright, so it's been about 10 minutes. You can see that our yeast has proofed nicely. It is nice and active. That's exactly what we're looking for. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to our mixer here. Okay, now based upon the humidity that you have in your area, you may need to add more or less flour. I always like to start with 4 cups. I may end up adding another cup. It just depends on how the texture is going to be. One other key is, in order to make it chewy, you're going to have to actually spin this on high for about 10 minutes. And so we're going to do all of that. We'll come back and show you what the final product looks like. Okay, so now this has been about 10 minutes and it has developed all of the gluten, and that's what's going to give you the chewy texture that you're used to if you've had pizza in the Northeast. And if you look here inside, none of the dough is sticking to the bowl. Those proportions that I provided to you earlier were just about perfect. So what we need to do now is we're going to cover it with a damp paper towel, and I'm going to put it in the oven, no heat, but I'll put it in the oven for a couple of hours, let it rise. About halfway through, let's say probably roughly an hour, once I've seen that it's risen, I'm going to punch it down, and then I'm going to set it back in there for another hour or 2, and then it's going to be ready. All I need to do after that then is divide it up. This will make 2 pizzas, and you can possibly get 3 if you like it super thin. The other thing to consider is if you don't use it all, you can put it into a just cooking spray inside a bag, and then you can freeze it and it comes out just perfect if you need to have something throughout the week. Okay, so our time's up. It actually has now risen twice. And in just a moment, I'll recap exactly what we did. So you can see we have a significant amount of dough. This actually is going to do, like I said, 2 pizzas. So let's take a quick recap as to how we got here. So what you saw at the beginning of the video, I used 2 cups of warm water, and I put some yeast in that, and I also added sugar to that. I stirred it up off camera, let it sit for about 10 minutes in proof, and then I added it over to the flour. And in that flour I had some salt. And so I mixed it until it was fully combined, and you notice that around the mixing bowl there was no sticking that was happening, so it told me that I was doing the right thing. I had the right amount of water in there. And then what I did was I mixed it for 10 minutes, and that helped me build up the gluten. Once that was done, I covered it with olive oil, and then I set it into the oven covered. And about an hour or so later, I opened it back up, I knocked it down, and then covered it again for another hour, brought it out, and now here we are. This is where you're at. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to cover it lightly with flour. I'm going to divide it into 2 pizza crusts. And like I had mentioned before, it freezes very well. So you can actually take one of these, just spray with cooking spray inside a Ziploc bag, put this in the Ziploc bag, into the freezer it goes, and then you have pizza dough that you can use at any time. In a future video, I'm going to show you how I use this exact pizza crust to make pizza on the grill. So you want to make sure and subscribe, and you'll be notified when I do that. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon.